So it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker for the day, Antonia Vann, Senior Marketing and Brand Manager for Museums Victoria. So Antonia is the Senior Marketing and Brand Manager for Museums Victoria. She joined Museums Victoria after 5 years in Brisbane, where she worked with Clemenger BBDO, Wyandar and AMP shopping centres. With over 15 awards under her belt, from Asia Pacific Shopping Centre Awards, Campaign of the Year, Brand and Partnerships and Innovation, to being a finalist at the Grand Prix Cannes Lions in Design and winner at BADC Best in Show, Antonia has a rich understanding of big brand building and marketing initiatives, as well as the importance of measuring one's success. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Antonia to begin her presentation.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. And thank you, Emily, for such a great introduction. As Emily said, my name's Antonia Vann, and I'm the Senior Brand and Marketing Manager for Museums Victoria. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Marketing and communications is often seen as a significant expense for a lot of companies. And because of this, it's become increasingly important for marketers to prove that every dollar spent is used to achieve maximum efficiency. In a marketplace that's still feeling the effects of the pandemic, marketers have to try even harder to justify their spends. Because as you know, marketing and communication budgets are often the first to be cut. Even if you maintain and actually spend more during this time, you have a greater chance of maintaining or growing market share. So Emily's given me a fabulous introduction, but just a little bit more about me. So as Emily mentioned, I started my career in advertising agencies, from digital agencies to multi-service agencies, such as Clemenger BBDO and Wyandar. In advertising agencies, people thought you were good at your job, effective even, based on the number of awards you won. I did win 15. But I soon realized that good marketing is more than creative awards. And I was shocked in fact, at how few of my clients were asking me, oh, something's gone wrong technology-wise, as usual. All right, Emily, checking. Emily. Perfect. Yeah, and I was actually quite shocked at how few of my clients were asking me to justify the dollars that I was spending on their behalf. So after working across numerous brands, such as Dreamworld, Minor DKL Food Group, Price Attack, Terry White, and the Commonwealth Games, I moved client side to AMP Capital, focusing on their shopping centre portfolio, and then Museums Victoria. For all destinational marketers out there today, as you know, the main goal is always to get bums on seats. But today, I'm going to be talking you through how you can truly evaluate your marketing communication efforts and how, what, and when to measure. All right, Emily, if you could change slide for me. Key takeaways. All right, so to give you a bit of a clear overview of my presentation goals today, here are the key takeaways. Not everything that can be measured matters, and not everything that matters can be measured. Always measure based on your key business goals and objectives. There's more to measuring your marketing effectiveness than ROI. Not every channel can be responsible for every objective. Know your channels and what they can deliver. Metrics mean nothing without the right analytics. Be careful when attributing meaning to numbers. And don't measure for measure's sake. It takes a lot of time and resources, so make sure you do something with it. Next slide, please. So I was asked today to bring you through what, when, and how to measure. But firstly, let's address the why. Thanks, Emily. Measuring your marketing and communications performance is essential because otherwise you're marketing blind. You really need to understand if you're using every dollar effectively and if you're using your budget wisely. We all like to feel informed when we're making decisions, and measuring one's performance allows you to feel exactly that, informed. Measuring one's performance is also crucial from an improvement standpoint. Once you can identify which areas of your strategy, tactics, and campaigns aren't working as well as you hoped, you can of course analyze this, adjust, and pivot as necessary. But if measuring is essential, should I be measuring everything? To quote Einstein, who else? Not everything that can be measured matters, and not everything that matters can be measured. Should always measure based on key goals and business objectives. Unilever's key business goal is to make their sustainable living commonplace. Deloitte points out that as a result, Unilever only measure their sustainable product portfolio versus the rest of their products. The result of being so focused on a key business objective, Unilever's sustainable products now contribute to 75% of the company's growth. Next slide, please. ROI, there's more to measure. So the definition of ROI, there's many going around, is the measure of profit or loss that you generate through, in this instance, your marketing and communication activity. So, are you getting your money's worth? If you have a positive return on investment, you're in the green, as you're bringing in more than you're spending. My summit talk today was actually titled Measuring the ROI on Your External Communication Strategies and Campaigns. But I'm actually not going to spend too much time on true ROI because I think you should focus elsewhere. ROI is a misused term, as true ROI is very hard to measure across all marketing channels because it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to attribute all touch points to the sales that they lead to or the value that they bring. For example, in a social media context, how would you put a monetary value on increased brand loyalty that comes from interacting with a piece of video content? Yes, it has a value, but that exact value would be hard to quantify without a large statistical analysis, such as weighted attribution modeling, predictive analysis, regression modeling, etc. We know that out-of-home advertising can grow mind share. Yes, you can measure the effective circulation of vehicles in the area, the number of pedestrians and therefore expected impressions or reach, and even perhaps click-throughs to a landing page if you have a QR code embedded on your creative. But that's still not true ROI. That's the use of navigational metrics or KPIs to see how the combined effect of that channel may have a positive effect on your sales or visitation. In terms of PR, a lot of outcomes are long-term, such as relationship building or profile building. Again, there's not always a short-term effect on the financial bottom line, which ultimately is ROI. Now, if you solely use ROI as a key signifier of your marketing and communication success, please be careful. ROI can conflict with maximizing profit growth in the long run, as ROI is a ratio of profit increase to marketing spend. You can obviously increase your profits or reduce marketing spend. And as you can imagine, most companies find it much easier to do the latter, which of course won't increase your profits in the long run. So ROI can really encourage budget reductions through the pursuit of short-term success. Next slide, please. So this is a diagram that I've actually taken from Binet and Field, and they were really the first ones to highlight this danger in terms of a short-termism marketing approach. So they studied the short-term effects of sales activations, which often deliver high return on investment, versus long-term brand building, which in the past was notoriously hard to measure. If we applied a short-term ROI-centric view across all our marketing and communications activity, we would come to completely opposite conclusions about what drives success in the long run. Return on objective. So at Museums Victoria, we use the PESO model or framework, focusing on paid, owned, earned, and shared media from a marketing perspective. You can click Emily. Oh, Emily, if you can just click for me. Oh, Emily. Oh, one more click. Sorry, team, the pitfalls of presenting virtually. Just one more click, Emily, if you can. Emily, if you can have a click. There we go. So each framework area also has a set of key objectives based on business needs. If you give it another click. If you just click through, I can always talk to it. Have a click. Emily, if you can give it a click. There you go. So that's where each framework area has a list of key objectives based on the business needs. And then it has a set of key activities that deliver on each of these objectives. So if you give it another click. We'll get there soon. And then each activity, which will pop up on screen soon, can be assigned a list of navigational metrics or KPIs. You should never have an exhausted list, perhaps 5 to 8, to determine whether the overall objective is being met. When it all pops on screen, I'll just speak to it so you can see it a little bit clearer. But that's what we call return on objective. By using a robust measurement framework of key metrics that are quantifiable, measurable, and actionable, I can measure the short and long-term performance objectives, as well as the combined effect of multiple tactics and campaign components. And the same goes when planning specific campaigns. The metrics you choose should align with your campaign goals. You wouldn't measure a long lead branding campaign with a goal of awareness in the same way as an online retail campaign with a gift with purchase that's prioritizing product sales. A brand campaign with the goal of awareness is going to prioritize reach-related metrics and use emotive channels such as TV, radio, out-of-home, etc. A short-run retail campaign with the goal of product sales is going to prioritize conversion-based metrics, such as search, click-through rate, cost per click, cost per conversion, unique reach, and perhaps social, unique reach, cost per mention, cost per engagement, cost per reach. Not every channel can be responsible for every metric and every business objective that you're trying to meet. And for large companies that are running multiple objective campaigns at the same time, you often need a multitude of tactics to deliver on each objective. In fact, Mark Ritson would argue that by employing at least 5 channels, you've got the best chance of marketing effectiveness. But I won't open that debate there. If you click through, Emily, hopefully everything's going to appear on this page. All right, so does everyone see that diagram now? Each of those framework areas has a set of key business objectives, activities to deliver on those objectives, and then KPIs under each activity. So, setting measurable metrics and KPIs. How do you do it? Well, there's really 3 key ways. And of course, you can also adopt a combination. That's what I do. So, aspirational benchmarking. Aspirational benchmarking is based on looking at metrics from industry leaders in your field. Think Fortune 500 type of thing. Obviously, this can take quite a lot of desktop research, and not all information is easily accessible. but you'll be surprised how much is out there. Earned benchmarking is based on looking at your past performance and your best performing campaigns and activities, and using that performance as benchmarks moving forward. Of course, the risk here is if you fail to reach key business goals and objectives in the past. If you use your past performance as benchmarks moving forward, you can find yourself in the same place as you were 5 years ago. Competitive benchmarking. Competitive benchmarking is about comparing yourself to other companies in your industry or field. This, of course, can be hard work without a media buying agency, but digitally at least, you can use the likes of Facebook Insights for high-level data, as well as business searches and influencer pages. Now, I like to use two targets, a stretch KPI and an actual KPI. For my stretch KPI, I like to use aspirational benchmarking because, as it's named, it's aspirational in nature. For my actual KPI, I like to use a weighted average between an earned benchmark and a competitive benchmark. But there's really no exact way to doing this, but that's what I do. As mentioned, what you should measure should depend on your key business goals and objectives. As a guide, I'm going to bring you through some of the most common measurables which allow marketers and communicators to try and track by objective and then activity. I'm going to flick through these because there's a lot and it's not even an exhaustive list, but I have highlighted some of the key measurables that I use on a regular basis. So, brand awareness. In terms of marketing, you may use things like total reach, share of voice, market share. From an earned media perspective, you may use AVE, which is, advertising value equivalent. Website YouTube, you might use website traffic, new versus return visitors. Email, perhaps your number of new database subscribers. And social media, total impressions or post reach. For brand resonance engagement as an objective. Again, from marketing, you may use ad campaign recall, new versus returning visitors, search, click-through rate, website page views, conversion rate, email click-through rate, and social media cost per click. And please feel free, obviously, to screenshot any of these that are helpful. And then brand loyalty. So for marketing, I often use NPS, frequency of visit, and brand sentiment score. To website, online repurchase ratio, perhaps. Email, your percentage decline in unsubscribes. And social media, your declining cost per acquisition, or perhaps the number of reshares. So knowing how to measure. You now know what to measure, but how do you do it? How to measure really depends on the organization in which you work and the available resources at hand. They're usually manpower, money, management, and machinery, the tools you have. The most basic level, however, there are 3 key ways to measure. That's quantitative data, qualitative data, and the use of anecdotes, which is often forgotten about. Quantitative data expresses a certain quantity, amount, or range. We can track these through tools such as social media platforms, Facebook Insights, social media listening tools, we use Falcon, PR listening tools, we use Meltwater, online surveys to databases, MailChimp perhaps, and of course population surveys. Qualitative data is all about telling a story. They're the insights that are more subjective and are about the impact of what you do. These are often ascertained through in-depth focus groups, transcripts, images, recordings even. I'm actually very lucky because I have an in-house audience insights team at Museums Victoria, and they do pre, during, and post-visitor surveys for me. And they measure things like brand ad recall, brand sentiment, brand experience, and even motivation to visit. Now, anecdotes. As I mentioned, anecdotes are often forgotten about, but to me, they still form a crucial component of the gathering of metrics. Anecdotes are often used for things like perceived value, service, and trust. They can include stories from your bookings and inquiries team, if you're a museum or attraction like myself, DM messages through social perhaps, or even chats on the store floor. They're often rich insights that can't be confined to a questionnaire template. And I find them very useful in encouraging the team and sometimes convincing internal stakeholders and often our harshest critics that we're doing the right thing. Metrics versus analytics. So I read an article the other day and it began with the statement, cultural entities generally don't get their numbers right. So this really prompted me to touch on the difference between metrics and analytics. Metrics relates to the data, the cold inputs and outputs, the measure of result. Analytics is the process of interpreting these metrics, process of analysis where you identify key insights and interrelate various metrics together to find meaning and patterns in data. Numbers and metrics don't tell the story. So when I hear cultural entities generally don't get their numbers right, what I would argue is that the article is trying to say that the meaning attributed to the numbers may be wrong. And this is where judgment and strategic analysis is just so important. Ogilvy once said that marketing executives rely on cold data like a drunkard uses a lamppost for support rather than illumination. And in my experience, this often happens when you look at an internal metric in isolation to other metrics. So for instance, I might see that my time on site has really increased as of late, and I might presume straight away that my brand engagement is going gangbusters. However, if I look at my other internal metrics, such as the pages themselves or pages per session, bounce rate, I may actually come to a completely different conclusion. What I might find is that my web experience is actually a little bit convoluted and people aren't finding the information that they're looking for in an easy manner. You've also got to look at your macro environment. Your attendance may be up, but how about population growth or the population's discretionary spending? Your visitation may be down, but perhaps there's work going on a major train line, which is the main vehicle for your visitors to get to site. Don't make assumptions based on the data without applying a broader filter to your other internal metrics and macro environment. That's very important. So, how and when to track performance? You probably know this already, but reporting on your marketing and communications performance should never be a one-off event, I'm afraid. It really is an ongoing journey. In terms of always-on reporting, I recommend adopting a simple dashboard in a Teams environment, Excel or other, which includes annual key KPIs and metrics set against key business objectives, and then tabs or other for monthly reporting, comparisons, and commentary. Visually, you can use a traffic light system if you like, or really whatever works best for you. Green, you're exceeding your target. Orange, you're meeting it. And red, you're a bit behind where you need to be. On a monthly basis, I like to sit down with my managers and then quarterly get the whole team involved and even invite some of your external agencies to see, what patterns are emerging in your data, what's working, what needs improving, and perhaps what needs reimagining. While my naysayers may say that you shouldn't compare month-on-month data because it doesn't take into account seasonal demands, I think that really just highlights the need for in-depth monthly commentary. Because I think when it comes to bought media, you really need to have your finger on the pulse in terms of what's working for you. And for short-term retail campaigns, you may even need to measure daily. However, that's not saying that annual reviews of your performance aren't important, because they, of course, are pivotal. Provides you with an opportunity to look at year-on-year comparisons and find permanent patterns within your data to see which tactics, programs, strategies, and campaigns are working and really what needs to be addressed. For example, recently I saw that programmatic hasn't been working for the museum. So that allows me to also raise questions to my external providers, such as my media agency, and ask the question, hey, why is programmatic such a huge part of my media buy, especially when different changes to the strategic approach aren't being raised. When it comes to reporting on campaigns, it's important to put together post-campaign reports. Post-campaign reports are extremely important because you can actually see, I guess, time in market versus any visitation spikes or troughs, as well as sales that are a result of your bought media activity. So for instance, I like to map out my marketing communication activity and visually depict my visitation, which is overlaid. This allows me to see any corresponding spikes and patterns in data. And correlations in data are very important because they allow us to see what's really working and what's making the biggest effect in terms of our performance. And of course, post-campaign reports are so important from an improvement standpoint. Make sure that you circulate these internally with key stakeholders. They're also very important in terms of asking for more monetary support for marketing communication activity. And it's also really important from an objective and audience standpoint. You can really get some rich insights and make sure you archive these for future campaigns so that they can inform your activity moving forward. Lastly, when it comes to long-term brand campaigns, don't just stop reporting after the first few months in market. An ISBA survey in 2018 in the UK showed that 61% of marketers stop measuring their performance after 3 months in market. Only 13% of marketers actually look at the effect of their campaigns over a year after they've been in market. We know as adults that we remember some of the marketing campaigns we saw as children. So it's actually proven that marketing effects can last a lot longer than a year itself. So make sure that you continuously measure the performance of these campaigns. And if you don't have the resources to do it, use the data acquired to date to try and project what the effects may be down the track. Now, what to do with the information? I've touched on, a lot of these things already, but this is a little bit of a step-by-step plan for you to follow. Because I guess the biggest thing is you don't want to collect vanity metrics and then just sit on the data. Really is the worst thing you can do because you've spent so much time and resources in the gathering of these metrics. So what do? Review the findings and identify your list of key recommendations for the future. Build evidence to support the use of key marketing communication strategies and channels moving forward. Be brutal. If strategies, tactics, or channels aren't proving effective, find improvements or revise the strategies and activities. Demonstrate the value of your efforts to your organizational leadership team. And if you're in the organizational leadership team, make the case for additional funding or budget requirements. Archive all findings for future benchmarking, as I just mentioned, and build and develop campaigns which achieve even greater results in the future. So, a bit of a process on a page, a Reader's Digest version. Set your aims and objectives. Identify the activities to be monitored. Develop key indicators in line with those key business goals and objectives. Collect the data, analyze and evaluate, identify improvements, act, and then always feedback on your aims and objectives and revise as necessary. So if there's one thing that I hope this presentation has demonstrated is the need to be clear about what you hope to achieve, the role of each activity you undertake, and the constant need of marketers to measure, evaluate, and modify strategies and tactics in an always-on manner. Perhaps this presentation gave you some new insights, reinforced what you should be doing, or just what you do already. And if you do a lot of this already, I really encourage you to share your knowledge and insights with your broader teams. Measuring marketing effectiveness and return on marketing investment is a crucial skill set, and it shouldn't be ignored. So thank you for your time. Apologies for all my tech dramas, and really look forward to your questions.
Yes, apologies everyone for those little technical hiccups. We try our best to minimize these things, but on the day you just never know what's going to happen, really. Awesome. Thank you so much, Antonia. Has been a really great presentation. So much knowledge and insight there. Really appreciate you sharing. We did have a question come through here from Emma. She's just asking if you had any tips to differentiate between impact of PR marketing and the sales/service experience itself.
Say that again, Emily.
This is quite a mouthful. So she just says, do you have any tips to differentiate between the impact of PR marketing and the sales/service experience itself?
All right. Look, obviously when I can't read questions, I may have misinterpreted this incorrectly. But I think it's also going back to your key business goals and objectives in terms of the role PR plays for you. So for instance, at Museums Victoria, how we differentiate the two departments in terms of marketing, sales, and PR is that PR is very much actually focused on that reputation piece. So is it actually elevating our thought leadership in different areas, being a museum, our spokespeople, etc. Whereas marketing and sales is very much about those bums on seats and ticket sales. So with PR in terms of measurables, yes, you have advertising value equivalent, but you may also have other things such as number of spokesperson opportunities, the actual status of the publications that you're getting your PR coverage in. It might be how long the article is, or is it just a listicle at the end of a newspaper? They have very different measurables, I guess, to marketing, which is just about how many tickets you've sold or products you've also sold. So I think the return on objective is very different from a marketing standpoint to a PR standpoint. And I guess if you go back to that diagram page that I have, it's very much about mapping the different disciplines, the key objective that they both have to deliver to, and therefore the activities underneath which are assigned a set of KPIs. So I think that's the best way to differentiate between the different disciplines, if that makes sense. But please enter another question if I haven't answered that exactly for you.
Perfect. We have another question here from Mandy. With how and when to track performance, would you recommend fortnightly at all, or is monthly, annually more effective?
Look, I think it really depends on the campaign length and your campaign goals. So if it's product sales, to be honest, as I said, I actually keep a look at these daily because I think you really need to understand when you have to pivot an approach and when you need to actually relook at your media plan or see what's working or what's not working. Obviously, for a long lead brand campaign, I think monthly is absolutely fine. And in fact, if the goals of that brand campaign are 3 years plus, you may actually only want to track your performance quarterly. So I think it really depends on your time in market. But absolutely, I think there's really no problem with tracking however frequently you like. I think, again, it comes down to that commentary piece and making sure you do realize about seasonal demands and even effects of things like weather, events in market, etc. But just make sure you canvas these somewhere so that you have a realistic view of what's skewing the data at any point in time.
Great. Thank you for that. We have a question here from Emily. Do you have any advice for measuring media campaigns and press release performance beyond potential audience numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, it depends on your organization. So at AMP Capital, I used to have a PR agency. So we used to work with Haystack. And Haystack actually created a dashboard, which is a customized report for us. So they actually talked to us about what does success mean for you, and created a set of KPIs based off the back of that. So as I sort of mentioned really briefly at a high top level just before, is that they really wanted AMP spokespeople to have prominence in media. So we actually tracked the number of spokesperson opportunities that were generated month by month. We also wanted to know the sort of outlet quality. So are we securing national news, or are we securing, an article on a blog, which, to be honest, in a post-COVID world, I think outlet rating itself is a really debatable topic because of so many digital media really getting that traction these days. But I think it really depends if you have the resources to create customized measurables, in which case, yes, you can actually map these yourself, you can obviously give weighted percentages based on the priority to your business. So if outlet rating is really important to you, that might mean that it's 50% of your weighted attribution that month. So it really does depend on where you're coming from. However, of course, you know, reputation, brand sentiment is a huge thing from a PR perspective. Was the coverage positive, negative, or indifferent? You can also track this obviously versus social. And then also even length of article, you know, was it a long article? Was it a short article? Make sure you track these sorts of things as well, because of course, the larger your article and the more prominent your piece is in a newspaper or press, you know, press piece, then obviously that's going to also elevate your brand. So there are many things to measure, and you know, I don't know how this is done, Emily, but I'm always happy to even share some of these examples of past dashboards that I've used, if that's actually helpful to people.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Anything, any kind of resources and tips you can share, that'd be so great.
And I think that's sort of, I guess, the wonder of this topic is that there's no right way to measure. And I think that obviously you don't want to measure for measure's sake, but at the same time, you know, if in doubt, always do measure, especially if it is linked to your key business goal and objective, and whether or not you actually circulate this with internal stakeholders or use it in the future, you've got that data there. So I think if you've got the resources, measure what you can, but then obviously apply the lens to, does it ladder up to my key reason for being?
Amazing. Well, thank you. I think those are all the questions that have come through. If there are any further ones or delegates would like to reach out, yeah, definitely get you guys all connected. And yeah, thank you again for your time and presenting today. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Emily, and sorry about tech glitches.
That's okay. Apologies on my end as well. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll now be heading into a break, and we'll be joining the plenary session at 3 p.m. This afternoon. You've got a couple more sessions left before the end of the day, so hope you enjoy.